products. So that's just the gist of kind of who we are and what we do, and we're excited to be here today.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Lindsay. So next we have Michelle Gettner, the co-founder of Unboxed Market, which is located right in Spadina, Fort York.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I run Unboxed Market with my partner, Louise, who is currently shutting down the store just down the street. And we come from a hospitality background. So we started in bars and restaurants. Both of us ran different ones. We ran 2 of our own before acquiring the location where we put in Unboxed Market. So we sold the last one about a year before Unboxed Market came to be. And when we were looking at what kind of a store we wanted to put in, we were talking about grocery, and it's very important to have something in the community and something local, and then kind of started researching what grocery stores even look like these days and realized that not all of them were really hitting with our own ethos on how we see overconsumption and what people throw out of their fridges, and definitely from coming from hospitality, what kind of food waste and other waste comes through that industry. And so we started investigating a little bit more and found that low waste and eco-conscious and green grocers kind of existed around the world, but not so much in Canada, and definitely not at all really in Ontario. There were only a couple when we started doing our research. So that's kind of where we took the jump and said, this is what we're going to do. And now we will be 2 in February and do a full service grocery store. So everything that you're looking for, if it's dry goods, if it's a butcher counter, cheese counter, we have soaps, we have cereals, we have a bakery, we do full catering. We're starting a new pilot project for some of the local communities as like we're playing with terminology still, but it's basically a zero waste meal. So your food is delivered to you and then we pick it up again after. And so you have no waste and you can still eat out and enjoy not cooking your own meal for a minute. And when COVID hit, we pivoted really quickly and got our entire store up online in just under a week. So now we also offer contactless delivery and curbside pickup.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. And finally, we have Andrea Teslia, the owner of the consulting firm Greenvine Sustainable.
Hello. So I'm Andrea, and I'm a consultant for businesses that want to reduce their carbon footprint, lower their emissions, become more sustainable. And we're still kind of figuring out exactly how to do that, I think, at large, and I'll look at waste, I'll look at energy consumption. There's a variety of different ways to go about lowering your carbon footprint, and then eventually the hope is to thereby then pass it on to the consumer, because I don't think that the onus should be on the consumer to be choosing a carbon footprint, less of a carbon footprint for all the products they're buying. So if the businesses are reducing their carbon footprint, passing on to the savings to the customer, then everybody's reducing their carbon footprint, and it's only a win-win. So I only started this in it's been in the works for a while, but my background's in business in general, and more specifically marketing and branding. And then 2013, I decided to go get my MBA with a designation in sustainable business out from the West Coast. So kind of being out there, I was living and breathing sustainability. So that really kind of, I got a lot of good insight into what sustainable businesses exist out there already. And then just some family issues brought me back to Toronto, and then just the discrepancy between what kind of exists on the West Coast versus what exists on the East Coast became very clear to me. So I really wanted to get involved with that, but was working in the waste management industry before that, and kind of like a progressive waste management industry company. And then just now I've lashed out on my own. So we're taking it day by day and seeing where it goes. But working with small, medium-sized businesses to reduce their carbon footprint.
Great, thank you so much, Andrea. And thanks to everyone for those great introductions. Before I jump into the questions, I just want to remind the panelists that this is meant to be an informal discussion, so please feel free to exchange your ideas as you like. And for our members, there will definitely be an opportunity for Q&A towards the end of the session. So I'm going to jump into the first question. Why did you choose sustainability as a focus for your business? And we can start off with Michelle.
Okay, I kind of touched a little bit of it in my introduction, which was more in depth, we started to see what the waste was that was accumulating in hospitality on all ends, you know, so food comes in giant packages, and then you put it in smaller packages when you're portioning it, and then you put it onto a plate for someone, and then if they don't eat it, it either gets put in a takeout container that they eventually somebody will forget, or just the extra food gets scraped, and if you're not careful, then it's not getting scraped separately from organics and waste, so you lose those channels as well. And then just watching, you know, waste management, things going into dumpsters as opposed to having things being separated into their own proper containers, whether it's proper or not, even at that stage, because everything is a little bit sideways with the way that we recycle and compost and do all the things here in the city. And so when we were moving forward into our project, that was a huge aspect of it, was not only eliminating waste for our customers, but also talking with our distributors and our manufacturers and trying to see where we can eliminate waste on that end too. So ironically, we get a lot of cardboard boxes out on recycling day, because that's how most of our things are shipped to us, is either in a reusable tote or in a cardboard box. So, you know, we actually do unbox a lot of things, but they're like 30-kilo boxes of potatoes as opposed to 50 little individual bags of 4 potatoes and those kinds of things. So really always focusing on eliminating single-use plastics and then just reducing waste in general wherever we can in the store.
All right, Nudnik?
Yes, I sense the theme of waste coming through, which is really exciting because, you know, Alexander and I and our family are lifers in the waste business too. So our story is very similar. Like working at Wasteco, we dealt with a lot of clients who were getting rid of waste, and we saw from the commercial side, and our passion was really helping them divert the waste. But then, you know, we really wanted to see what we could actually do with the waste. And, you know, Nudnik really stemmed from this idea that we should be developing products that actually have a recycling plan or deconstruction plan, so ultimately they can be recycled. Some of the biggest challenges with recycling is that often materials are mixed, and therefore it poses a real big challenge in terms of actually getting them recycled or not. And in fashion, for instance, we see this quite regularly, with a lot of our apparel globally being made with mixed fibers. So textile waste and plastic waste are very similar in the sense that if those materials and fibers are mixed, it ultimately means that product is likely going to landfill. And so there's a few things that we do to make sure that that doesn't happen with our own products. And one of them is just using one material source. So with our products, we use cotton, organic cotton off-cut fabrics that would otherwise pollute the planet. And we turn that into our kidswear. And essentially when you're working with natural fibers, you can understand that they can be composted. So right now we're continuing to test the compostability of our products with a composter in Niagara. But yeah, I mean, it all comes back to waste. It all comes back to waste in the sense that our products are designed today, most of them, to not be recycled. And we just want to be a really good example of doing the opposite of that.
All right, and Andrea, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I would reiterate what my other two friends on this roundtable are saying, is that it's all about, comes back to waste. And I think when I first got into kind of doing more sustainable business, the first two companies that I worked with were in the fashion industry. And so it was a big emphasis on reducing the amount of waste in that industry. And then I worked in the waste management industry, and that had to do with food waste, like specifically food waste. And then I just got onto the single-use plastic thing. And that's kind of that's what got me wanting to start this consultancy in general, was just the single-use plastics and just how they're clogging up everything. It's just people don't even think twice about the single-use plastics they're using, because it's all been normalized, and like we've come to accept that that's okay. And I'm not even like condemning everybody who does all the single-use plastics. I mean, I still do sometimes, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, it's just been so normalized. So it's all a lot. I'm glad that that's the feeling that all the other panelists have around waste, because like that is what I think the #1 issue is, because it's just like, where is it all going? And we like, where is it all going? We just like, we go and stuff it into holes in the ground, and like, how long is that going to last? It's a finite resource, all this land we got. So waste.
We've got a theme going. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next question we have is, what problem does your business solve? And I think, on some level, I think you guys have answered that. Did you want to add anything to that question? Nudnik?
Hey guys, the other twin A here. I think this was sort of one of my questions to take on, but I think everyone's pretty much answered it. But I know for Nudnik, it's exactly what Lynn said. We're sort of on a mission to challenge the global waste issue, and also actively help to solve it with the products we create. And I think our biggest mission day in and day out is to make future-proof products, everyday products for the next generation, specifically for Nudnik. So that these kids that we're having, and they inherit a cleaner planet. I think just like what Andrea was saying and everyone is saying, it seems like collectively we kind of understand waste and are appalled by waste, but the average person doesn't necessarily even think about where their waste goes, what happens, the afterlife of the products they use, the things they use. So another big key component of Nudnik is obviously educating parents, and then by extension their families, to sort of be aware of the afterlife of the things that they use.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have anything that they want to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I somewhat fumbled over my intro of what I do for my business, but I want to say that just sustainability is evolving so much, like every day, and how we get these carbon savings are innovating daily. So I just think that no matter, like, even if it's just something about that can be reduced, that's something I do. And then even if you don't know how to do it, like, I love solving problems, and like I love digging into the deepest, darkest corners of like the interwebs to like find a solution to stuff. So it's just, I help businesses figure out what they need to do to reduce their carbon footprint.
And I'd just like to say one thing that's just been on my mind quite a bit in the last little while, and it was just something I was really starting to think with the, coming into 2020 with climate change and so much, so much climate action and so much more needed climate action. But it's an interesting question to kind of pose too throughout this, considering waste is definitely a fundamental theme here, is just the idea that waste can be and likely will be one of our greatest resources moving forward. And, from a fundamental product development component, like at Nudnik, we just look at waste as such an opportunity to make cool products from waste, and then ultimately not have to tap into those raw resources that are so precious right now. So it's just another thinking point kind of as we go, is just like, let's look at waste in terms of design and what can we use it for.
All right. So what are some challenges and advantages that you've experienced as a result of your sustainability mission? And maybe we'll let Michelle start us off.
Okay, challenges. Every day there's another challenge. Product sourcing is forever going to be our biggest one, and talking to distributors, talking to manufacturers, and explaining why we don't want the kitschy little beautiful packaging that they have that's supposed to sit just so on a shelf. It doesn't help us, and sometimes that's hard to get across, especially when it's sometimes with the same company that you ask for something and they're, oh yeah, no problem, we can do it, and they send you something and it's totally not that thing, and then you have to send it back, and then it's another carbon footprint because you're sending it back, but it's something that we can't effectively use in our store. And that conversation, I think, is going to happen forever, or at least until some really serious policy changes come into effect, which right now, any policies we have, I haven't seen any teeth in them that are going to actually push manufacturers and distributors to reduce the weight on their end, the waste on their end. So that's something that is going to make our business forever a little bit more difficult. That being said, things that we've accomplished, I mean, we have closed loops on a lot of the products in our store. So our soap wall is hundreds of thousands of liters that we've saved out of little individual soap bottles and shampoo bottles and all of those things that just come on totes. We have bulk milk, we have bulk oils, we have all sorts of really cool things that you can get in glass or you can get on tap. And we've sourced most of our products that now come in paper bags, or at least in a large enough volume that if it is a plastic bag, it's something that we can use for our organics program or for our recycling program, so we can upcycle those things as well. And just kind of building those really awesome products. And I mean, we were talking a minute ago about innovation, and every day a new product comes out that we get excited about because it's something that didn't exist yesterday and is either upcycling a material or thinking about another way to use something that we already use, or any number of combination of those things. And it just makes it really exciting. But the best part is always when customers come in and it's either their first day, or it's the first day that they've come in that they've remembered all their containers, or that they've achieved some kind of a goal, like reducing from, a certain amount of recycling bins, reducing one down, or reducing a guard. Like, those are the stories that are always going to be the best for us, because those are the ones that mean that we've reached out past our little 1,500 square foot store and are actually touching the community, and they're seeing their own actions, which then just propels that even further. Yeah.
Whoops, sorry, I was muted there. Thanks so much, Michelle. Andrea?
Yeah, so I'd say, what is it, disadvantages and advantages?
Yeah.
Challenges and advantages. Challenge, I think I'll start with the poor and end with the good, but I think challenges for me is just that I don't think that, okay, challenge number one, I launched in a pandemic, and so people are trying to stay open, let alone invest in sustainability. So that is one that will solve itself, I believe, in time. But I think that, yeah, another challenge is just that businesses don't have the incentive to invest in sustainability. So, like, I mean, they can have the good intentions, and some companies do act on those good intentions. I will not take that away from those companies, but not everybody has said good intentions, and so they're lacking, the incentives to go a little bit greener. And they do see the incentive in attracting and retaining the loyalty of consumers who value sustainability, and then also employees. They value sustainability. The millennial and the Gen Z demographics increasingly so. So those incentives are there, but I guess financially they're not there. And then also, I guess, just kind of the economies of scale haven't quite hit yet with sustainable products. So it is more expensive to get alternatives to your standard plastic knife and fork. But hopefully with time that will also decrease and it will become more competitive. So those are the disadvantages for me at this time. And then advantages, I'd say, is that, like, we're at a critical mass kind of breaking point. And like, maybe they've said this before and maybe that hasn't come to pass, but I think maybe I'm just more tuned into it because I'm the one paying attention to who needs it at this point in time. But I think that, like, really there's nowhere to go but up and out from here. So
Great. And Lindsay and Alex?
Yeah, so, you know, and again, to kind of echo my fellow panelists as well, you know, our disadvantages or our challenges are scale. So just in the nature of creating a product from waste, ultimately we have to have a certain stream of waste in order to create that product. And we've always wanted to be a business that is flexible and also designing based on waste. So we essentially call ourselves waste chasers as well. We're looking for large enough volumes of waste that ultimately we can turn back into a new product. So I'd say that scale is a challenge. It's just sourcing. It's finding partners to then partner and work with that material and turn it into the products that we envision. And then also, I mean, the positives, of course, are that we do feel like we're part of a group of people that are really pushing the boundaries and creating, you know, scaled or scalable products made from waste. And, you know, that ultimately not just made from waste, but that won't contribute to waste and also that look good. So another big thing for us too is that we just want to create products that people want to have. And our biggest thing is that, I mean, what's really positive to us is when someone just buys our product because it looks good too. And then we know that we've done something right and potentially even converted somebody over to sustainable fashion, and they can learn something from us, whereas they might not have otherwise. So another couple of the challenges for us are similar to Michelle, is that, you know, for example, when we're shipping things overseas with partners that we make from offcut fabrics overseas, we, you know, the typical way things are done is that we get our individual garments packed in a poly bag. So, you know, at the beginning, we were told that this was a necessity, that it was for customs and things like that, custom purposes and things like that. So we converted that typical poly bag into a compostable bio bag because that was the best option available to us. Well, with some recent digging, we found that there's actually no requirements to have those individual garments wrapped in anything. So, you know, it's just another level of what common knowledge is out there that can actually be reversed into a more sustainable way. So right now we're kind of revamping how we actually ship our products over, ensuring that they're not going to get damaged, which is essentially what that poly bag is in place for, but sourcing another option and just doing something different. And it goes along with what Michelle said, you know, she gets her products and sometimes they have like the little, you know, I can imagine like with fruits and things like that little plastic sticker is probably so painful and you've had to work past some of those challenges. It's similar for us in the sense that we want to eliminate anything that has to come with products and challenge what is necessary and what's not necessary. You know, and that goes with what we create for products as well. People are used to unboxing and things like that, or unpackaging and unveiling new products on Instagram and the like, and we've just kind of kiboshed that. We only send what's necessary, and we make sure that everything we do send with our garment is extremely meaningful, also made from waste that never contributes to waste. So scale and packaging are definitely the challenge. And the advantages are endless, though. I do feel like policy will catch up. And like Andrea said, economics of scale will catch up. And I think we're all really well positioned for that.
Great. Thank you so much. So, Michelle, you did talk about this a bit earlier, but how have you seen your businesses impact your community? If you could talk a little bit more about that. And we'll start off with Lindsay and Alex this time.
Yeah, community is very important to us. Obviously, a big inspiration for us and the products we create come from, you know, my own children, the children that I see within our communities, and the idea that we can get them products that ultimately are definitely more positive for the planet. But there's a lot of background work that Nudnik does as well in the community. We're part of Fashion Takes Action. We're part of their Textile Waste Symposium. So we're working offline as well to figure out how we can, not only with textile waste in fashion, but textile waste in automotive and other industries, how we can utilize that, capture that, utilize that better in Ontario and Canada in general. So there's a lot of big players that are involved in those conversations. And we certainly like to make sure that we're positioned right where the problem is occurring and helping to try to get to solutions as well locally. the other main thing is that we're constantly, even from our waste management days, conversing with customers that do generate a lot of textile waste right here in Toronto and Canada. And we've got some really cool products and collaborations in the works as well, where we're turning those different forms of textile waste into new things for our store, aside from just kidswear. So just to preface that, Nudnik is putting out kidswear right now, and that was the basis of our business. But 2021 is going to look a lot more like products for adults, products for family, collaborations, all with the same theme, which is making cool products from waste that never contribute to waste.
That's great. And Andrea, how have you seen your business impact your community?
Yeah, so as I said, it's a newer business, so I would say I have not seen it impact it yet, but I've been having a lot of good conversations and working with some businesses, and so I'm just happy to be a part of starting the conversation and having people to look into it and start thinking about how they want to address it. So lots of big things to come, I can guarantee you that, but just at this point in time, no specific Greenvine impacts on my community.
Lots to come.
Yes.
Michelle?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm jumping over my own questions right now. I think I touched on a lot of it, which is just seeing the actual reaction of our customers every day. We have done some community outreach things a little bit outside the box than what we usually would do. So like last year I fully saw an Instagram post and started bawling about one of the shelters who was in need of towels because the men in their shelter literally did not have a towel to dry after they had a shower. So I threw up a rapid social media post and the neighborhood exploded and filled our car with towels and shampoo and just like shoved stuff in our car, and we drove it over to Haven and dropped it all off to them. That was awesome. We've worked also with 12 who are working to get menstrual products to women or to people who have the need. And so that was a really awesome collaboration, and we were not sure because they were very young when we started working with them and how it would turn out. And again, people just responded, and I think it's the really cool thing about our store and this type of focus in general is it is very much a community, and everybody really wants to participate and be able to push their own little bits forward. And so they're always finding a way to try and help, and to, you know, if they have something for themselves, they'll pass it on. If it's knowledge, if it's an item, if it's whatever it is, it's there to share with everybody. It's a really cool thing to experience.
Awesome. All right, so we will jump into our next question segment, and this focuses a little bit more on how the government should or maybe should not support or get involved in creating a more viable environment for green businesses such as your own. So first off, just out of curiosity, were there any government grants or subsidies or supports that were available to you when you started your business? And why don't we start off with Andrea?
So I started this, I had some savings. I started this on my own. I didn't look into the government grant option.
Okay. And Lindsay and Alex, what about you?
Short answer, no. We went through two Canadian accelerator programs. One was Next Canada's Next Founders program, where essentially I felt like I got an executive MBA through the course of a summer, which was fantastic. The other one was the Joe Fresh Center for Fashion Innovation. Now, we didn't there wasn't any grants that were specifically available to us. I feel like maybe I missed something, but at the same time, we don't quite fit into like the tech sector or the service sector in terms of like climate action and some of the good work that we're doing. So I feel like it was really difficult to figure out how to position us, because on the forefront, we look like an apparel brand. On the back end, you know, we're really focused on creating really cool contemporary products made from waste. So I do feel like it's been a bit difficult and to navigate those applications and see how we fit into some of the things that are available out there. There is one that I'm looking into right now. It's the Can Export grant, and what that is and why that would be relevant to us is that essentially every time we make a new range of products, it's almost like a pilot project. It's almost like a think tank. Like every time we do it, there's a lot of R&D. We're looking at a form of waste. We're getting creative. We're engineering, you know, a product development pack or a tech pack to then turn that waste into a product. And then we're manufacturing it either locally or with overseas partners. So we could fall into that category, and that would be fantastic because it would give us money to do R&D. So that is something that we're going after right now. But yeah, a long-winded answer is that no, I think it's very challenging for a fashion brand to find funding, whether you're sustainable or not.
All right, well, thanks for those insights. Michelle?
We also used our own money and no backers, no investors. We did look for some, smaller things after time passed. So this year, for example, or this past year, we got a small BIA loan, which helped us, BIA grant, which helped us upgrade our computers. Part of when we took over the store, we kept as much of the original equipment as possible, but we definitely outgrew our POS system that was there, which was old school Casio Sharp cash registers. So we upgraded that August, I think was when, August was when our final install. We started in June. That was a very small grant. It basically covered the cost of the install, but everything else has been all our own funds. But I would agree, it's not only that it's very difficult to find grants, it's very time consuming for small businesses to do that. Like the grant that I applied for the BIA, it was over 80 hours of work that I had to put in after working full time every single day to try and apply for the grant. Like I told them this year I wouldn't be reapplying even though we qualified, because I just don't have the manpower to put back into that.
Yeah, so that's sort of a segue into the next question, which is, what do you think the government could do more of to support the creation of local green businesses like yours? Are there things that maybe they're doing now that you think they shouldn't be doing? Could you flesh that out a bit more? And we'll start with Michelle.
Okay, I would say any kind of assistance for any small business is always going to be so incredibly appreciated. I don't know anyone who's running their own place who hasn't turned around and said thank you for any kind of help that anyone is given. And it's frustrating because we all work so hard to build everything on our own, but we can't do it on our own. And I mean, you look at grants. I have written grants in the past. I was raised in a not-for-profit family, so grants can be super intense. One that I wrote, there were 6 of us working on it, and it took us like 8 weeks of research and building and all of the things. You just can't when you're a small business. So even having the ability to streamline something somehow, or offer some kind of assistance, like the incubator programs, like those kinds of things where people can get access to somebody who can just make that process a little bit easier, or somehow break it down into better categories so that you can more readily identify what will actually work for you, so you're not spending days sifting through the provincial and federal sites trying to figure out what actually applies to you and what doesn't, because sometimes you get halfway through and you're like, I don't actually get to participate in this, and that's a lot when you're a small business in manpower. But what they aren't doing, I mean, it's all kind of part and parcel. The more the merrier kind of thing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Andrea.
Yeah, so I think, so something I was thinking about was just, it would be to support businesses like mine in the sense, and everybody else's in the sense that like, I'm looking for clear definitions around what it means to be sustainable and to be eco-friendly and to be, insert superlative here. And it's just because I think in that sense, it encourages more businesses to actually take on these initiatives that that we're outlining here. And instead of just being able to like throw down some copy, say they're sustainable, and then move on, and then the consumers believe that that's what sustainability is, and then so getting some real definitions around what these terms mean will definitely, I think, bring more support to these businesses. And just I think like I to be honest, I don't know at this point in time if there are tax breaks, incentives in terms of like being a sustainable business. From the brief research I did, I didn't see any or many. But yeah, I think tax incentives to be a sustainable business, because like, think about it, at the end of the day, if you're reducing your energy load, if you're reducing the amount of waste, you're reducing the contaminants going in the water, this is all savings for the municipalities. So therefore, they should also be giving us a break, right?
Yeah, well put. And Lindsay and Alex, do you want to weigh in?
Absolutely, yeah. And again, to echo my fellow panelists too, you know, anything for a small business to echo what Michelle said means a lot for us. We've been through accelerator programs. There wasn't money involved there. So like Andrea and Michelle, we also have self-funded our business thus far. We have won some small amounts of money along the way. But anything like that, any grant application, any application for accelerator programs or anything in which we could possibly get money from does take a lot of manpower. Like that can export, I mean, it's something that I've identified that might work for our business, but I haven't actually started the application yet because it is so daunting. So, you know, an interesting one too is what way can you help sustainable businesses? I think the tracking of impact is so important. So we've just started using a company called Green Story. They're local, and they help us track the impact of each of our products on our website. And ultimately, we're tracking emissions, water, CO2, and waste diverted from landfill by doing what we do. And it's tracked ultimately on a header on our website that tracks our overall impact. And it also breaks it down per product. So if a consumer is putting our t-shirt in their cart, for example, it'll show what that impact, that positive environmental impact is of purchasing that shirt. And then again, it does that in the cart as well. So if they have a bunch of different products in the cart, it'll give them the exact quantification of all of those products too. I think that the tracking of impact is going to be very important for sustainable businesses moving forward for investment purposes. I do feel like there is a growing trend on impact investing, but again, it's going to require being able to show some remnants of profit, but it's also going to be an equal to sustainable impact. So I think that in the form of support from the government could even be how we use something like a Green Story or various tools in which we can then track our impact, because it's not cheap. I mean, these are fantastic tools that are available and accessible to use, but they're not cheap. So, whether there was some sort of, supplementation for a small business being able to acquire these tools and use them would certainly be beneficial, I think, moving forward. But yeah, again, I mean, any little bit helps. I think that there should be a lot more weight on small businesses with a social conscience that are able to show their impact and being able to delegate some funds their way.
Great, thank you. All right, and finally, we wanted to get your perspectives on what people should be thinking about if they're looking to start their own sustainable business. And we'll start off with Michelle.
Sorry, things that I would recommend is what my question was. Get your sleep while you can, because there's no more now. Fight the fight. Make sure that your voice is heard is a huge one, and really be clear about why you're doing what it is you're doing. The smallest thing will always absolutely definitely make a difference. So anybody who shuts you down, it means you're talking to the wrong person. So find somebody who will hear you and who will support you and who will push you forward. That's probably the biggest asset when you're moving forward. And like, definitely get your sleep, because there's none.
All right, Lindsay and Alex.
Great, Alex back here for the last question. Yeah, I think everyone's sort of touched on waste, obviously as a big ongoing theme, but you know, it's hard not to offer some advice on the waste side, just coming from what we know and our own personal experience. So my sort of advice for any businesses starting out now is considering their waste. A lot of it happens in the design phase. So at Nudnik, we really try to design out our waste. We design based on the materials first. And anyone who's creating a product now in that design phase, see where you can eliminate as much waste as you can. Sort of look at your supply chains, look at the materials that you're using, consider the afterlife of them. Again, we've talked about packaging, but it's all those little things that when you're just starting out in a business, before you get too far, you know, make those changes now. It's a lot harder to reverse as the further you go in deeper.
All right, and Andrea.
And I'd say definitely just have people in your community, not your community, but like in a sustainable community, just because it's sometimes you just feel like, I mean, I think we're probably a subset of the business owners out there, smaller subset of the business owners out there. So like, to find encouragement from other people in the sustainability industry is huge. And like, I'm still definitely growing my network, because I started my network out on the West Coast, and like I had my MBA people and that was all great, but then I come over here and I'm just like, people over here just like, what's sustainability? It's not as bad anymore, but I definitely think that like finding other people who are in the same fight as you is huge. And I think just from like the idea generation perspective, I think just like, we're kind of working with carte blanche here on like what the opportunities are out there, at like what we can build, and like my mind is always thinking about all these like great ideas. And so like I'm starting with the consulting business, get my feet wet, but like I hope to be on the other end of a business that I've created, like similar to my fellow panelists, where there's just, yeah, I think there's so much to do. So think all the things, and talk to your sustainability folk about it would be my suggestions.
Okay, great. So we'll move into Q&A right now. And I see a couple of people, they turned off their video there, but Amrita actually had brought up a question that that I didn't get a chance to ask earlier, so I think I'll ask it on her behalf now. But were there ever any instances where your bottom line and your sustainable values have been in direct conflict, and how did you go about resolving these? And why don't we start off with Andrea again?
Yeah, so there's been a couple, but so one was just a potential client that I was speaking with, and there's a compostable mailer that I was talking to her about. And so the business that makes the compostable mailers, they give me a 10% I get 10% of the sale back. And so like, they call me a distributor, but I'm essentially a salesperson for them. But I was working, the potential client I was working with is small business owner. She's in retail, so the margins aren't big there. And so just because like I truly believe in sustainability so much that I offered her the 10% discount, but obviously I know that's not sustainable for my business, but I just feel like people need to like get the use of these products, and then they'll see the benefit of them, and then they'll pay the extra 10% going forward. But so that was like one example. And then another one of my clients, he's more concerned, he's less concerned about price, but just like was concerned about where it's from and like where it's coming from. So that was a true kind of client that I would want, who they don't care, not that they don't care about price, but they're more concerned about the distance that it's traveling. But the problem with that is even that, so I looked all over for something that was made within that matched all of our criteria that we wanted, but was made in Canada or the US, just in North America. But like everything, and I spoke to countless people in the States, and they were all getting their stuff from China. So I think China, Taiwan, etc. And I just think that highlights the need for more domestic production. And so that would be something that I think that the government could help us. And I know that that's in their plans as well, to kind of create a better domestic production, so that we don't have to look at these we don't have to sacrifice quality and the bottom line for sustainability.
All right, thanks so much. And Lindsay and Alex?
Yeah, a great point, Andrea, with the mailers. You know, for example, some of the challenges have been, and with Nudnik, we don't even look now at the kind of like the cheapest options, which are generally the least sustainable. You know, our kind of MO is now that we'll take, you know, if we're sourcing sustainable packaging, for example, or mailers, we'll find and source 3 top sustainable products, and we'll, you know, choose based on obviously cost, but it has to we have to make sure that it fits with our, you know, our ethos with sustainability as well. So generally, like across our whole supply chain, packaging, garments, you know, we have a very simple philosophy, which is just that we make products from 100% waste and that they never contribute to waste. So the things that are important to us are making sure that we're using single source materials, and that have been made from a waste product, and that ultimately can either be recycled or composted effectively. And coming from the waste business too, we just know the loopholes in terms of something that says they're recyclable, and knowing that it ultimately is just a product that is not being recyclable in today's recycling standards or today's recycling world. So I think, you know, it does make our product more premium, of course. It does up our costs in terms of packaging and things like that than, you know, a fellow brand that doesn't necessarily care as much about those things. So I do think that it does compromise our bottom line for sure. But ultimately, we always want to be transparent that these are the best of the best on the market, and this is what they cost. And again, to allude to Andrea's point as well, is that I wish there were more Canadian products available to us, you know, in the form of mailers and things like that. So I do think there's a lot of room for Canada to grow as a player in a lot of these aspects. But yeah, I do think that the bottom line in that challenge of making sure that we don't compromise that really comes to the integrity of what we're trying to do, and just making sure that we're leading with transparency and that we won't sacrifice those values.
Sorry about that. And since we're getting close to time, Michelle, Charles had posted a question in the chat, so I think I will put that one to you. What provincial or federal policies do you think would help support other grocers approach similar levels of sustainability as you have demonstrated? And could something as simple as a heavy-hitting carbon dividend shift the needle on this?
Okay, that's a very big one. particularly when you're looking at the big grocers, like if you're looking at the multi-million coast-to-coast grocers, we're not even a blip on the radar, and small grocers have a really hard time getting the attention of anyone at any level. Even municipal is very difficult. So looking at sorry, we have people eating. Looking at the layers, I think that yes, a carbon dividend might help. Like we looked at bullfrog power as an opportunity, and it is right now prohibitively expensive for us to participate in that. So that might be something, but I mean, the big guys are already doing that because for them it's a tax write-off, right? And we're just not at that level to be able to afford to spend the money to later maybe get the money. But like it's very difficult for a small business to do that, and especially when we're a business that is working very hard to keep our margins as small as possible so that we can be as accessible as possible to our community. We can't put those numbers into effect and push prices up like some other small boutique places can, because of the whole point of what we're trying to push.
Charles, did you have a follow-up at all?
No, I think that exemplifies the great challenge that's there for any small business, and I think yeah, it's a good way to put it. That even with these policies that may seek to even the playing field, sometimes even that can be counterproductive. So there's strength sometimes in the diversity of businesses that are out there in the Canadian landscape. I heard mention of local sourcing, Canadian-based products, and all of that. It's there's always these countervailing incentives. So I appreciate the answer. Thank you, Michelle.
Great. All right. Well, Vicky had one quick question. Are you guys okay to stay on for a few more minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
So we will. Vicky's question will be our final question for the evening. Can you talk about the amount of research that you've had to do and any instances of greenwashing that you have encountered? And as she's explained greenwashing as when a product, process, service is not as eco-friendly as first advertised. Andrea, have you encountered, have any of the businesses you work with encountered anything like that?
Yeah, so my ultimate scapegoat for greenwashing is H&M. When I was doing my MBA, I was kind of majoring in sustainable fashion, and so yeah, I really did some research into them, and so they have their conscious collection, I think they call it, and like I looked it up one time, and it's like, let's call it 200 of the 1,005 or 1,500 items that they have on there. So it's like such a small portion of their offering, and like H&M as a fast fashion company is in and of itself unsustainable. Like they're promoting the continuous buying and discarding of clothing. So like that is an example of greenwashing to me. The fact that they're saying they've got their conscious collection, and you know what? I know that they do a lot of good work in the Hong Kong research and textile industry. I'm not really sure of the exact name of it, but like I know that they are looking for like how to make regenerative cotton and whatnot. And so like I know they are doing stuff, but their business model in and of itself is unsustainable, and I consider them like the #1 greenwashers. But that's my humble opinion.
And Lindsay and Alex, what about you guys?
Just to sort of go on that trend with Andrea, I mean, in the fashion world and also in waste management, I mean, we saw greenwashing all the time, but sort of what companies would represent outwardly what they're doing versus what they're really doing in the back room, sort of, and what we pulled away in the back door was always really interesting, no matter what we tried. But the fast fashion thing's really interesting, and just sort of what I think is just a must watch for everybody. I just found it so hilarious in the worst kind of way. But Hassan Minhaj is a comedian, and he has a show on Netflix, which unfortunately got canceled, which disappoints me so much, but called The Patriot Act. And there's an episode about fast fashion specifically. And he creates this sort of mock pop-up that I think it's like H and then written like and M, but like in a way he can get away with it. So everyone walking up thinks it's H&M. And he's sort of undercover, and it's crazy. But the way he exposes that greenwashing in fast fashion is really educational, and he does it in such a great way. But there's a lot of room for improvement, and definitely a lot of greenwashing. And yeah, but I just thought that everyone should watch that episode. It's a good one.
Yeah, and sorry, just to go off that too, like 2 examples of that are, a sweater will say, wool, like made with wool. And then when you actually look at the garment tag, it'll be like 5% wool, 95% polyester. So the true makeup of the garment is actually plastic. And the wool is just a very small margin, which obviously they market the crap out of. And, this is just the form of greenwashing that's prevalent within fashion. And you really just have to look closely at those like true garment tags, not the tag it comes with. That's a marketing tag. That can be whatever they want you to know. That's what they'll say there. But the true marketing tag on the inside of your garments is, where it's made, what it's made of. Those have to be accurate. And a lot of times those 2 things do not match up.
And just as a quick side note to that, with our new collection, we wanted to encourage that. So our hang tag actually reads like a food label, which everybody's sort of used to looking at now and seeing the calories and the ingredients in our food. And we're sort of hoping that, eventually like fashion catches up to that. So we've kind of created something somebody's familiar with, but it goes through the ingredients of each of our garments. And I just think it's important that we sort of encourage everybody moving forward to look at the labels in their clothing as well. It tells you a lot about what you're putting on your skin, which we know is obviously the biggest organ and absorbs quite a bit.
Great, thanks. And Michelle?
I think a really obvious form of greenwashing is one that is actually not necessarily greenwashing. It's just that we don't have the proper way to take care of it. So a lot of the PLA and bio bags and those kinds of things, they say, compostable in a commercial facility. So people put them in their green bins, and they're not compostable here in Toronto because our composting facility doesn't do what they need to do in order to biodegrade. So they will eventually biodegrade, but what happens in Toronto is those things go into the composting facility, and then they get skimmed. Anything that floats and looks remotely like a plastic gets skimmed off the top and thrown into landfill, and it'll be mummified, and it'll take a lot longer to break down than even it would if you left it out in the sun in the summer kind of thing. We've been lucky enough to find a new company in England who is making our backpack bags, and they're made completely out of eucalyptus. So we asked for a sample and sent it to a third-party lab and had it tested, and it's actually eucalyptus. It's water soluble, so we actually have to be careful about things we put in it because at 16 weeks it'll break back down. But it is home compostable, it is commercial compostable. But even for commercial compost, I advise people to put it in their home compost, break it down, and then put it into the commercial, because if it floats, it's going to get skimmed and it's not going to compost, even though it's literally a plant. But there are a lot of those things that have polymers in them that should be completely compostable, but they've been reinforced with a way to stop like the liquid breakdown and those kinds of things, and they're not compostable, or parts of them will be eventually, but not all of them. So that's somewhere where the consumer thinks they're doing the right thing by buying a bio something or an eco something, and it's not just because of our facilities and we don't have the way to break it down. I think there's one facility in Ontario that can actually break down bio products right now today.
Sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
You just made me think of, I have a lot to say on this whole topic of biodegradable stuff and commercial composting versus composting. But the one thing that really gets me, which is a form of greenwashing in my opinion, and if I'm wrong and somebody knows me to be, please speak up and tell me, but the fact that they tell you to put diapers into your green bin. Like diapers, like what part of a plastic diaper is considered compostable or organic or anything like that? And my theory is that they do it for the diversion numbers, or they're saying, oh, we're diverting all this. They may be like, so I actually spoke to somebody about this because like who handles this waste, because like I was just so baffled by it. And they said that they'll dump it out. They chop them up a bit, maybe some poo flies out, and then they scoop that all up, and then it goes back to landfill. So like it's just adding extra diesel miles to like go to the compost facility, then go to the landfill. It's like, so that's huge Toronto greenwashing that irks me. So
it's so true. And just to kind of add on that as well is that we're doing a pilot project with our garments and packaging with Walker Brothers in Niagara. So essentially when we approached them and we said that, we want to compost our t-shirts, like we want people to be able to compost our t-shirts. We're making sure that they're made entirely out of organic cotton. And there's no reason why they should, cotton threads, cotton tags, the gamut. There's no reason why they should not be able to be composted. It's a natural fiber. So we've learned a lot, which is essentially that it has to be chopped down, which is what Michelle said too. There is a responsibility for the consumer as well to ensure that this packaging and these products in general are going to be recycled. And unfortunately, there's just not enough weight put on that, either by product makers or whoever, in terms of making sure that each product has a deconstruction or recyclability plan. So we know that if, when we start, our new collection is coming out later this month, and our marketing is going to indicate how you chop our t-shirts up, how you chop our packaging up. And again, it comes back to the biodegradable bags. These are weeded out. I mean, they've confirmed that, it's great that you're using a compostable bag, but their equipment can't tell that bag from a regular plastic bag, and it just gets sifted out. So, paper, we've been told that paper is ultimately also adds value to the soil, which I think is important too, is what are we using that can actually add value to the end product as well. But yeah, it's very confusing for the average person to understand when there is a recycling symbol, or you're told that this is compostable, to actually find out that it isn't. And there's a huge disconnect there.
All right. So Annie, did you want to quickly put up the last slide, and we'll give each of Nudnik, Greenvine Sustainable, and Unboxed just a chance to do a final plug?
Can everybody see that?
Well, I see the first slide, but the last slides with the links and stuff, do you have that? Okay, great. So oh, it disappeared. Okay, there it is. Okay, so Nudnik, did you want to just give everyone the info about where they can follow you, find you, etc.?
Sure. Okay, so after some COVID things and some COVID delays, we are back with new product and 7 new styles at the end of this month in time for the holidays. And moving forward, we'll be dropping monthly drops and different collections with different themes. So you can check us out at Nudnik Life on Twitter and Little Nudniks on Instagram, and nudniklife.com And definitely sign up for our newsletter. We'll be dropping sort of a monthly playbook, we call it, that's going to have tons of tips and tricks on a zero waste lifestyle for families.
Great. And Andrea?
Yeah, so as COVID has created these interesting times for us, I understand that capital in your business might be a little tight, but I love to have conversations about how to improve, whether it's an input into your business, whether it's how your business operates, looking for alternatives. I love to talk, think, and do sustainability. So use this time to start the conversation, and like I'm happy to have the conversation with you. So hopefully hear from some people.
Great. And finally, Michelle.
Yeah, so find us at all of those lovely places that are listed on your screen. Instagram is our most active, followed by Facebook, Twitter. I occasionally remember to check in, so I'm sorry, don't use that as our main way to get in touch, but the best way always is actually to come down to the store. We're now open 7 days a week. We have COVID measures in place. I'm happy to talk to anybody about all of those. The biggest one being if you come and we're open and the door is locked, we're at capacity, so just wait and we'll let you in as soon as somebody leaves. Yeah, and find our stuff in the store, or even shop online and we'll send it off to your house, and you don't have to come and risk the weather and the cold and the COVID and all the things.
All right. Well, thank you so much to all of you, our panelists, for this really stimulating and informative discussion. I know that I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our members have as well. And we'd also like to thank our members so much for tuning in and participating tonight. There were some great questions and engagement with the panelists. Before we let you go, we just want to quickly remind everyone that now's a great time to take advantage of the 75% tax credit that you'll get back on donations to the riding of up to $400. And no contribution is too small, and every bit will help us run a successful campaign leading up to the next election. So if you want to see a Green MP in the House of Commons for Spadina Fort York, please do chip in whatever you can. And also please join us for our upcoming Green Drinks virtual pub night on November 26th at 7 p.m. Our very own Amrita Paul will be teaching you how to mix your own green cocktail or mocktail. So look out for more details in our upcoming weekly newsletters. And we'll be sending those out by email. And if you'd like to volunteer with us, please do email Bruce Van Dyten or Santiago. Rachel, were you able to grab Santiago's email and just pop it into the chat there? Great, thank you so much. And as well, I should just quickly mention that Rachel has also popped in Unboxed latest flyer into the chat as well. So if you want to check that out, that's there. All right, and thank you again all so much for coming and for staying with us a bit overtime. We so much appreciate your participation, and we hope to see you again really soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.